And now we're going to go back and bring in our guest, Scott Deatherage. He's been on the show before. Scott is an attorney, consultant in energy, environmental, and blockchain technology. All right, Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Glad to be back.
Great. You brought a guest with us. We're with you and in the studio. Introduce us.
Sure. So I've brought Michael Cummings, a good friend and just a complete expert in the area of blockchain, smart contracts, cryptocurrency mining with a company called Dnode that does mining and mining hosting. And just glad he was able to come today and hope he can explain to everybody all about the computer side and the legal side of smart contracts.
Absolutely. All right, Michael, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great. Pull that mic up just a little bit, get a little closer to you.
Perfect.
Hey, Michael, give us some background on who you are, what your company does. And I know we're going to talk about smart contracts, and I'm really curious about that, but just, lead us down the primrose path. Start us off.
Okay, yeah. I got started in blockchain stuff several years ago, and me and some friends just last year, we got together, we started looking at mining operations and building hardware for people who wanted to get into mining. So we started this company, and over the last 6 months, we've been building it into one of the larger hosting operations here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we're looking to expand that. But in doing the mining operations, I've had to really dig into like smart contracts. Like what does this technology really mean for all of us as far as like logistics moving forward for any number of businesses? Like everybody hears the term blockchain, but they don't realize that that can affect their business as well.
Yeah, well, let's start with the smart contract, code versus law. Walk me through that, because I'm going to have to start using this in my business if I'm going to stay abreast of everybody. I hear the buzzword, but take me, for example, in my business, right? It's mainly it's at this point, it's an advertising model. How does a smart contract work, or would it work for me?
Well, it would work for you by basically you would set up the incentives to be paid. Mm-hmm. So you would predetermine where payments happen along the process of your business. I don't know exactly your full business plan, but if you're just talking about,
say somebody wants to buy a 30-second ad, they pay me once a month to do that.
Right. So what you would have is you would have some third-party oracle that essentially says that ad played at this time, and it counts the number of times that ad played. Well, in that smart contract, it would state that every single time that ad pays, that advertiser pays you at that moment. So instead of paying a bunch of stuff up front, the advertiser only has to pay you when it happens.
Oh, okay. Makes it simple.
And it's instantaneous. There's no, you don't have to go chase them down to pay you later. It happens when it's been, as soon as it's been verified.
And they're not upset because they don't pay me up front. They just pay me when it's pay to play.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. All right. Code versus law. Tell me about this stuff. I mean, Scott, you can jump in any time too, because you're the attorney and staff.
Yeah, I think, well, Scott, you want to talk to people about how contracts,
So we all know about contracts. They're usually written on paper, start out in Microsoft Word. So it's just a description of the relationship between two parties. But if parties have to do something, or if there's a dispute, you have to go to a judge, there's not really any code built in. So a smart contract is code. It says, for the example, if you play this ad, the computer code, there's an automatic payment. And so there's this division between, is it code, is it law, and where do they intersect? So it's all the way from it's just code and not really a contract to so there's law and a contract. So you can even now, people are saying, I'm going to write a contract, and within that contract, I'm going to state computer code that rules the relationship between the parties.
Oh, okay. It sounds to me like because we're coming to a knowledge curve when we're taking all of these smart contracts and we're putting them out into the world. It sounds to me like the old guard has got a real, they got to hit the books to figure out how to make sure that this works right and it integrates with all of the stuff. I mean, I'm thinking Nabisco. Try that. When this stuff flies off the shelf, right? This is where the smart contract comes in, right? Am I right?
Yeah, well, in Nabisco's case, you have a whole supply chain
Right.
that these contracts would actually handle. So the sourcing of the supplies for how they actually make their product, like you would track that in a contract that would say as soon as the raw materials get to Nabisco, Nabisco pays them out. And then as Nabisco starts doing delivery, it goes down when Nabisco sells to their distributor. And all of that can exist in a contract that they can then track, and it's very transparent. And this is really important whenever you think about things like fresh food. Like, say if you wanted to get seafood, for instance.
Right.
Like, it always says that it's like Alaskan king crab, right? Yeah. But do you know when that was sourced, or if it's fresh, or if it actually came from Alaska? Well, whenever you have smart contracts, you can actually start to like make this whole thing transparent. It holds people responsible to the information.
Got it. All right, let's take a break right now. All right, we'll be right back on the other side of this break with Scott Deatherage and Michael Cummings. Is a founder of Dnode, DNODE.io. You've been listening to CEO Money with Michael Yorba. We'll be right back on the other side of this break. Welcome back to CEO Money. I'm in the studio with Steve Deatherage, Deatherage Law, and Mike Cummings. He is a founder at Dnode. All right, Mike, when we left off, we're going to move into a different direction on this segment. I wanted you to bring out the mining. You do a lot of it. There's not a lot of places where you can get a lot of education if you're not in the industry already. Walk us through that.
Yeah, so most people don't quite understand exactly like how the network runs. So in order for the network to run, there is no central authority on the network. So what happens is you have all of these machines, these computers specialized to run these networks, and they're called ASIC machines for the Bitcoin network, for instance. You can use computer GPUs to run on the Ethereum network, and you run these machines and you point them at the network and you say, your job is to process the transactions and verify that everything that's happening on the network is what should be happening. And in the most simple way to think about it, it's the same thing as Visa and MasterCard when you run your debit card. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They verify that transaction. So we essentially operate all of these machines that run this network, and they're what keep the network alive.
So let me scratch my head for a second, because I'm thinking of mining as creating Bitcoin or Litecoin or Ethereum. I'm thinking of mining. What I thought you were just describing is blockchain, actually, following the transaction. Am I right?
It's all the same.
It's all the same.
Because what's happening is, in order, you have to keep the computers running the system, but those computers need some incentive in order to continue to keep the network up, because they cost a lot in electricity to run. Mm-hmm. So to incentivize people, the machines, each individual machine is paid a little bit of the transaction fee or a reward on the blocks in order to make money so that they'll continue to run the network.
Okay, give us some use cases. Some, for instances.
Just a very basic transaction. If you and I send a Bitcoin between one another, that transaction goes into a block on the Bitcoin network that happens to be every 10 minutes. And when that goes out, all of these machines go and try and solve a complicated puzzle to verify all these transactions. And this is all just really, really crazy math, but it just boils down to, is this a true transaction? Is it supposed to be in this block? And if it is, we will verify it. Right. Once the block's been verified, those funds are essentially have left my account number and moved to your account number. And all of this happens without any other third party really having to be in the middle to say that, like a bank, that transaction took place. And It happens near instantaneously.
You've got more customers than you can handle right now. Why is that the case?
This is a really, really hot space right now, because people are just like, wait, okay, so they see the fluctuations in the price in Bitcoin, and that's really what drives it. There's a lot of speculation that goes on. Me personally, I'm not really a speculator. I'm more of a technologist, so I look at this from the technology side, and I see what this means for the future for us. But a lot of people have made a lot of money, and that gets out, and people start talking about it, and they're like, how do I get involved? How do I get involved? Well, a really easy way is to buy one of these mining machines and just play with it.
What do they run?
It varies based on the price of currency at the time, whatever miner currency that you're working with at the time. But like Scott, for instance, has got 1 or 2 miners that he just wanted because he wanted to play with them and
Wanted to learn.
Okay, right.
and so like right now, I mean, I think one for Bitcoin will run you about $1,000.
And it generates what over?
That also depends on the price and how many machines are running on that network at the time. There's a lot of economic variables that go into
okay.
what actually happens.
Yeah, let me look it up. So BTC right now, Bitcoin $7,450
Right.
per coin.
Right. And so one of these machines probably costs you, for the Bitcoin, will cost you about, it's going to depend on your electricity costs, but let's say that you're spending 8.5 cents per kilowatt hour on electricity. It's probably going to cost you about $85 a month to run that machine. Now that machine will make you about $150 a month. So over time, that machine will pay for itself.
Got it. Okay, I see that. And then the more of them, economies of scale.
Right.
Is that where we're going? Okay, good. All right. We've got about a minute left. Any last punchlines you want to bring out before you have to go?
Just everybody just needs to learn about blockchain. You just really, really need to learn it. You need to understand it before you go and try and buy into it too. I really, really warn people not to just get into it for the wrong reasons. Really do your research. And then as far as like the smart contract stuff, just like look at how you can automate pieces of your business to eliminate a lot of your costs. So that's what I would suggest.
That's a big one right there.
And if anybody wants to talk to me about it, they're more than welcome to reach out to me.
How do they do that?
Email's the best. It's michael@dnode.io, DNODE.io.
Great. Mike, thanks for being a guest.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. Scott, thanks for bringing him.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
All right, contact info for you too, Scott.
So my email is scott@Deatherage, DEATHERAGE law.com. Nice short name.
Yep, that works for me. All right, thanks, gentlemen. This segment has been brought to you by, I'm going to give it to you, Scott Deatherage.